Coming in at number one, once again, is Coronation Street. As I said for October, Coronation Street has been the number one soap opera of 2021. I think the writing has been strong, in my opinion. I don't know how others really feel about it, but I feel like the ratings have been strong too. So I think it's working overall. I know soap operas, rightfully so, get slack for being like just not being able to tell good stories anymore or character driven stories anymore. And like, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all of the soap operas used to be very character driven for the most part. It started a little bit in the 80s with American soap operas, but mostly in the 90s is when these shows really started being more plot driven than character driven. I think for the British soap operas, that was probably happening more in the 2000s when that started to happen, where they became more plot driven rather than character driven. But Coronation Street has told some great character driven stories this year. It's been the main story, but I feel like there's a lot of, like I talked about last time, characters connected to the main story that we're getting to see their character driven stories continue through this story. I think they've done a wonderful job with it. Honestly, it just, I can't say enough good things about it and how well they have done crafting this story and just keeping it character driven. It's the first time in a long ass time that I've seen a soap opera do this kind of character driven storytelling that I actually connect with, and it's not boring, and it's always engrossing, and they keep taking some twists and turns with it. It's just been great. I don't know if I'm even going to get into the smaller stories of the month. I mean, we had Zidane, who's like money laundering, and Ryan's kind of onto him. And we had Curtis propose to Emma, and we've had James and Danny struggle to restart their relationship, and James encouraging Danny to pursue his dream and leave. The smaller storylines could use some more oomph. I'm not gonna lie. If I have to say one negative for Coronation Street, some of their C stories need to start either moving faster or just get more interesting. But they're still character driven, so I give them props for that, but they need to find a way to make it more interesting. Now, of course, the main storyline, I talked about it a lot in October. It's been going on for most of the year. We've gotten a continuation of it. So we had Corey, who killed Seb early in the year, kicked his head until he ended up brain dead and dead. So we had Corey, who threw out the evidence of his crime, but that bag was taken by a homeless man. And in October we had Abby trying to kill Corey. That didn't really work out because we had the whole event week of the sinkhole going on. But in November, Abby and Kevin finally married. They were supposed to marry before Seb was murdered early in the year. Of course, that didn't work out because of it. But they did end up finally getting married. Meanwhile, Corey and his father tried to skip town, but Gary helped stop them. Corey was arrested. And that is when Kelly's conviction was repealed, because Kelly was the one set up for that crime. And she was there and she did help escalate it, but she was not the person that murdered Seb. Corey was. Now, I thought where they took Kelly's story is really what made me keep really respecting this story. She was adopted by Imran and Toya, but while she was in prison, they adopted another child. So they had to make a choice. They couldn't keep both of them. So Callie was allegedly going to go stay with her mother, but then Callie ended up homeless instead. She still feels bad about being involved with what happened. And I think they really took this homeless story seriously. They even tied in the man that ended up finding Corey's bag that ended up getting Corey arrested. They connected him to Kelly while she was homeless. And I've just really enjoyed how they've just followed every beat of this story. It's a hard thing to do in character driven stories to follow every beat and make it interesting and make it meaningful. And Coronation Street did a great job of all of that. And the homeless story, I've moved close to Los Angeles over the past couple of months now. And when I am in Los Angeles, I see the homeless problem. And look, there's a homeless problem everywhere. Clearly, this is a British soap opera. So they're, telling their own homeless story because it's probably an issue there too. But in Los Angeles, it's just really hard to see sometimes. You can just walk down a street at any point and probably going to see someone homeless. And it's really rough. It really is. So I like that they took the time to tell this side of Kelly's story. She was caught up with a guy in a hotel and she tried to rip him off, didn't quite work out. She had to run from that situation, went back to being homeless. And this, once again, the same story, stayed connected to the other side because, Nina was starting to date Seb when they both were attacked. Nina was attacked as well and injured, Seb murdered. And, Nina hates Kelly. And Asha has always been trying to date Nina. Meanwhile, Asha's brother, Addie, has been kind of getting close to Callie because Addie feels mad at his father, as I talked about in October, because Dev ended up saving Asha in that car accident rather than him before the car blew up. So Addie's been upset with his father, causing some trouble himself, ended up stealing a car and shit. So they connected Addie and Kelly, and Addie wanted Kelly to move in with him and Dev, but Asha did not want that to happen. And I will get back to that point because this story also connected back to Abby because the gun that she was going to use to kill Corey back in October is the gun that ended up getting Natasha killed. And Roy did not take that very well. Roy's been a character around for quite a while. He's gone through many ups and downs. As a character, Roy took in Nina, and Roy just felt bad about that gun killing Natasha because Roy felt like he could have stopped Abby from wanting to kill Corey in the first place. And Roy ended up signing his estate and the cafe over to Nina and leaving town despite Nina and others trying to stop Roy from leaving. So this got to this point where Kelly is drunk, homeless Kelly, down on her luck after everything that's happened this year, ends up running into a bunch of guys who are giving her shit for being drunk and asking for money. Nina ends up coming upon this, and Nina, who has PTSD because she was involved in that attack on herself and Seb from Corey and his friends, it's like a full circle. This time, Callie's involved. Nina calls the police, ends up helping Callie out of that situation, and ends up bringing Callie to Dev's house, trying to talk Asha into letting Callie stay there since Addie already wants that to happen. And I don't know if I'm doing a good job at explaining all of these stories being connected into one great character driven story. And it's just done very well. I think that the fact that they can, start to tell Callie's point of view now and her character driven story while still telling Nina's character driven story, while telling Roy's possible character driven exit story, Abby's story. This was still connected to Imran and his affair and Toya. his affair, well, being with Toya, and they had previously adopted Kelly. They just brilliant job of connecting all of these characters having their own character-driven storylines is what I'm trying to convey, and is why Coronation Street stays at number one. It's just better written than every other soap opera in these rankings for sure, by far, really. So I have a hard time seeing Coronation Street, even though these stories seem like they're kind of coming to an end and they need to start moving along other stories. That does kind of worry me for Coronation Street going into these next few months, because the other stories on the show need work, honestly. But while these main stories have been driving the show in 2021, Coronation Street is the soap opera of 2021. I've highly enjoyed the writing. I highly recommend going back and watching this story if you enjoy good character-based storytelling. So I do think it's inevitable that sometime in 2022, something will pass Coronation Street in my soap opera rankings. But for now, and going into December, Coronation Street has a strong shot at staying at number one. It's number one since I started these rankings a month ago in October and November. It's number one, in my opinion, in 2021, period.